Stand before the canvas, and the first thing you notice is that you are not the one looking. You are being watched. 5 pairs of eyes, devoid of warmth, devoid of invitation, lock onto you with a predatory intensity that unsettles the stomach. This is not the passive female nudity of the Renaissance, draped in velvet and mythology to make the male gaze comfortable. This is a confrontation. In 1907, Pablo Picasso unveiled Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, and in doing so, he didn't just paint a scene of a Barcelona brothel, he committed an act of visual violence that still feels fresh, raw, and dangerous more than a century later. Look at the bodies. There's no softness here, no yielding flesh that yields to the touch of a brush. Instead, the figures are hacked out of the background, composed of aggressive, jagged angles that seem to threaten the viewer with physical harm. The skin is not painted with the luminous glazes of Titian or the porcelain smoothness of Ingres. It is rendered in flat, dull ochres and terracottas, blocked out in harsh, unblended patches. It is as if the artist has taken a hammer to the concept of the ideal woman and presented us with the shards. The elbow of the central figure is not a joint, it is a weapon, a sharp pyramid of flesh that punctures the space around it. The drapery, usually a tool to soften a composition, hangs like sheets of broken slate or crystallized rock, offering no comfort, no place for the eye to rest. The space itself is claustrophobic. In the tradition of Western painting, established 500 years prior, the canvas was a window into a world, a deep, receding space where figures existed in a rational, measurable environment. Picasso incinerated that window. Here, the background presses forward, slamming against the picture plane, suffocating the women. There is no behind, only a frantic, fractured now. The blue and white curtains are not fabric, they are shards of glass that interlock with the bodies, making it impossible to tell where a limb ends and the room begins. The still life at the bottom, a slice of melon, a pear, an apple, is not an offering of fruit. The melon slice is curved like a scythe, upturned and dangerous, a subtle visual rhyme with the sharp hips and elbows above it. This painting demands that you acknowledge your role as the intruder. The title, Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, refers to a street in Barcelona famous for its brothels, but Picasso has stripped away the seduction. These women are not performing for you, they are judging you. The figure on the far left, borrowing the rigid stance of Egyptian statuary, pushes through a brown curtain with a heavy, forceful hand. Her face is a mask of indifference. But it is the 2 figures on the right that truly, violently disrupt our sense of reality. Their faces have been hacked away and replaced with something alien, something terrifyingly asymmetric. The crouching figure turns her back to us, yet her chin twists an impossible 180 degrees to stare us down, her chin resting on a hand that seems too large, too heavy. The laws of anatomy have been suspended, replaced by a new, brutal law of plastic form. To look at this painting is to feel the air sucked out of the room, to feel the weight of a gaze that refuses to be owned. To understand the ferocity of this image, we must step out of the gallery and into the murky, gaslit streets of early 20th century Paris, and specifically into the mind of a young Spaniard consumed by ambition and fear. It is 1907, and Picasso is engaged in a silent, desperate rivalry with Henri Matisse. Matisse had just shocked the art world with The Joy of Life, a painting of sensual, rhythmic harmony and vibrant color. Picasso, in response, wanted to create an image that would destroy harmony itself. But the true catalyst for the Demoiselles Avignon was not found in the Louvre, but in the dusty, neglected corridors of the Musée d'Ethnographie du Chocadero. Picasso later described his visit to the Chocadero as a revelation, a moment of profound sensory and intellectual shock. He spoke of the smell, the damp, musty odor of decay and neglect, and the sight of African masks and sculptures, objects that had been ripped from their contexts and piled into glass cases. For Picasso, these were not sculptures in the Western sense. They were magic things. They were mediators. He realized that the carvers of these Dan masks and Fang sculptures were not trying to imitate reality. They were giving form to the invisible terrors that surround humanity. They were tools used to negotiate with the spirits, with death, with the unknown. "I understood why I was a painter," he said. "All alone in that awful museum, I understood that painting must be an exorcism." Lesdemoisellesdavignon is that exorcism. It is a canvas painted against fear. At the time, Picasso was terrified of syphilis, a very real and deadly plague that haunted the brothels he frequented. The original sketches for the painting included two male figures, a sailor and a medical student holding a skull, explicit symbols of vice and mortality. But in the final version, he removed the men. He removed the narrative. He left only the women and the terror. By grafting the features of African masks on the faces of the women on the right, he was not just engaging in a stylistic experiment, he was arming them. He was transforming them from passive objects of desire into totemic deities, radiating a dangerous power. Notice the savage hatching on the faces of the right-hand figures. These green and red striations are not shadows, they are scarification marks, war paint, the deliberate destruction of the individual identity. The nose of the standing figure is a concave scoop of shadow, her eyes mismatched voids. This primitivism, a term now laden with the heavy baggage of colonial appropriation, was for Picasso a way to access a raw, unfiltered vitality that he felt Western civilization had suffocated under layers of politeness and academic rules. He viewed these masks as weapons, and he wielded them on the canvas to ward off the demons of illness, sexual anxiety, and his own artistic irrelevance. The painting is a ritual. It is an attempt to seize the power of the other and use it to shatter the mirror of European tradition. It is a desperate, aggressive act of magic performed with oil paint and turpentine. When Picasso finally showed the finished painting to his inner circle, the reaction was not applause. It was horror. A silence fell over the studio that was heavier than the canvas itself. Henri Matisse was furious, believing the painting was a bad joke, a caricature of modern art intended to ridicule the movement. Georges Braque, who would later become Picasso's partner in the development of cubism, famously remarked that looking at the painting was like drinking turpentine and spitting fire. Even the writer Guillaume Apollinaire, a staunch defender of the avant-garde, found it incomprehensible. The painting was so reviled, so misunderstood, that Picasso rolled it up and kept it hidden in his studio for years, facing the wall. It was a failure that was too dangerous to be seen. But this failure was the seismic tremor that would bring the entire edifice of Western art crashing down. In destroying the single viewpoint, Picasso birthed cubism. Look again at the crouching figure. We see her back, her spine clearly delineated, yet we see her face fully frontal. We see the nose in profile, but the eyes from the front. This is the death of the snapshot moment. Picasso is forcing us to see the subject from multiple angles simultaneously, compressing time and space onto a flat surface. He is saying that reality is not what we see from one fixed point. Reality is the sum of all possible views, a fragmented, shifting perception that the mind stitches together. This was the moment the mirror of art was shattered, and we have been living in the shards ever since. The legacy of these 5 terrifying women is written into the DNA of the modern world. Every time you see a split screen in a movie, a collage in a magazine, or the glitch aesthetic of digital media, you are seeing the echoes of the Demoiselles. Picasso proved that truth could be found in fragmentation, that beauty did not require symmetry, and that art did not need to please the eye, it could assault the mind. Today, Lesdemoisellesdavignon hangs in the Museum of Modern Art in New York, protected by glass and security guards, sanitized by the canon of art history. But if you stand close enough, if you let your eyes trace the violent geometry of those limbs and the hollow darkness of those mask-like eyes, the painting still vibrates with that original primal energy. It remains a difficult, uncomfortable object. It refuses to settle. It reminds us that beneath the veneer of civilization, beneath the smooth surfaces of our digital lives, there are jagged edges, raw instincts, and a chaos that cannot be tamed, only painted. It stands as a monument to the moment when the world broke, and we learned to find a terrible, new kind of beauty in the wreckage.